Oh yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
this is gonna be shorter today. I don't know if we'll have a full hour, but I'm sure we will because often we talk a lot. So,
Yeah, that's
Uh-huh.
good. I have to leave it. I have to be sure I leave at 9. So
Mhm.
that's good on my part.
yeah,
Okay.
all righty.
Yep.
Nehemiah 11, this whole thing, it's just been wonderful to see how it's like planning a new housing addition today. Because we went through a lot of plans with Nehemiah and his helpers, and this particular chapter, we're now getting into a little bit of a change in that I never really had heard this before in this study. But because that they only had about 50,000 people come over to Jerusalem, they're really not plentiful on population in Jerusalem or Israel itself for Israelites. So, and they've been, as you noticed, kind of picky about who actually is going to live in Jerusalem proper and who's living outside of Jerusalem. So this whole chapter, lots of names again, and I'm not going to go through all those names. We'll just talk about the trucks and what this is all about. But we're going to begin to see the Chamber of Commerce go to work in Jerusalem as to they're going to encourage to live in Jerusalem, who's going to live outside of out of the city proper of Jerusalem. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, okay.
Yep.
Just wanted you to see that, not unusual. I didn't go clear back to the days of the Israelites, but those percentages is that in 1800s here in America, only 3% of the population lived in a city. The rest of it was all rural, which is probably not surprising. But then you see in the 1900s, it grows to 14% of the people are living in the rural areas. Now, for me, I wasn't in the early 1900s, but my grandparents were, and that's when they moved. My great grandparents moved here in 1850 from Germany on my mother's side. So, and they came to Nebraska and homesteaded, and the families, and I mean, very large families in those days. I think my grandfather had 5 brothers and 3 sisters. So, but that's how they kept the farms going. So, 14%. Then up by 1950, about 30% is in rural areas or at that time. So it's growing. So our city, I meant, sorry, urban
Yeah.
areas, and then 2047%. So as you can see, the cities are growing and the rural areas are fading away more and more with population anyway. Doesn't mean the farms aren't getting bigger, but it means the number of people living on farms is getting smaller. So,
Yeah.
uh, so what we have in Jerusalem is we have a city that was a wall that was built in 52 days, and it had its temple. And it's like when you drive by a development and they have all these new houses and all the infrastructure, and but it isn't full yet. And that's where we're at with Jerusalem. What was the last church, school, or community involvement for which you volunteered? Some of us, that's easy.
Yeah.
You doing any volunteering down there, Mike?
Yeah, we do. For
Good.
I think, well, not the church.
Well,
It's good. Not the church. I'm just saying, living here in this condo here, it's like
I,
volunteer for
as
uh
community, it's
projects going on around here. That's what
yeah.
comes to mind now, but not the church. I go to the bridge church. I haven't volunteered for anything.
Yeah.
It's, it's
God gave me a wife that wanted to make sure that I volunteered for everything. So
Mhm.
I'd often come home from work and find out I was a new president on the neighborhood association. That's
yeah. The
Well,
yeah.
I
trouble
just
with
got
that.
myself out of the treasurer's role of our HOA probably coming up here soon. So
Mhm.
I'm very grateful for that. But one of the things we volunteered
Well,
is we got a bunch of guys together and we were cutting down trees. We were
Mm.
see,
but after I saw how those guys were doing it, I said, no way is that going to happen again because
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
was a little concerned for their safety.
yeah,
And
I get,
I mean, the youngest, I was probably the youngest, and that's, 66, and then went up from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
But we got it done. Luckily, we were saved. God sent some guys down, and they
yeah,
were just happened to be coming our way as this tree was coming down, and it could go in the middle of the road, and we didn't have the equipment to get up there and cut it down. And these guys came down, and for $200, they finished
Oh,
cutting it
wow.
for us, and then we
Oh,
just hauled
wow.
it in their thing, and they shredded it.
go.
And I tell you
Yeah.
what, that definitely was divine intervention.
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this group, I mean, volunteering is something that I've done all my life, and I just used to think that, it was painted on my forehead that I didn't know how to say no. And so I've always, I've actually had calls where people would call me up and say, hey, we're looking for some volunteers. No, 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 no. And I'd say, sure. And there'd be dead silence on the phone. And they'd go, wow. I said, well, what's wrong? They said, well, we're kind of shocked because we've called like 15 people. They've all said no. And you just said yes right away. I said, I might as well do it. So I very seldom have said no to doing anything that was worthwhile. I mean, I'm not going to do any volunteer where I don't think it's a benefit to the people you're going to serve, but I'm a volunteer through and through, always have been. My mother was too, my father was too. I think it came in the family. But I enjoy it. And I think, it's something that God wanted us to do for sure.
Yep.
So,
I think you're right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in your volunteering, would you do it again? And why would you do it again, or why not?
Shoot, I'm still doing it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I am too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
On my part, I'm a little bit more cautious on what I volunteer for because
I'm a
I get
usher, so
yeah,
yeah, I can't go on too many things and then I can't fulfill it and then I go on this guilt trip. I'm building more cautious on what I say I can do and not. That's what I'm
Well,
finding out.
I over volunteer. I get into too
Yeah.
many things, and so I've got to learn
Easy
to
to do.
say no once in a while.
well, I've been thinking that maybe I should have no tattooed on my forehead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'll do it. Yeah.
yeah, really.
Being cautious though, I have to tell you, I'm probably not at all. And
Mm.
I probably have made more enemies as a volunteer than I ever did as being an employee.
Yeah.
You just have a sense of freedom as a volunteer. And
Gotcha.
sometimes you say things you probably wouldn't have said anywhere else, but in a volunteer role, you
Yeah.
go, I'm a volunteer. I can say what I want. So,
Yeah, they're not
Well,
gonna
sometimes
fire
those
you.
things-
Good job.
yeah.
Sometimes those things need to be said though.
Yeah. But it's
Mhm.
like last night, I was volunteering and we're in the room, Marv's with me there. And I turn around and the refrigerator behind me is completely full of water, bottles of water. So I turned around and I looked at everybody and said, how do you guys like water?
Yeah.
I didn't go out the door and say, hey, can we use this water? I said, hey, how would you like some water?
Yeah.
And they all said, yeah, we love some water. I said, well, I have some here. So I started handing out water to everybody. And
Yeah.
then I did say, you do understand I could get in trouble for this, but I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Mm.
Have you
Yeah.
ever had a job where you received a bonus for any
Mm.
kind of hazardous duty of something that, and I don't mean really hazard, but something that nobody else wanted to do,
Nobody
but
wanted.
you went ahead and did it. Did you get a bonus for it?
Well, I had I don't know about being hazardous, but it was just a terrible area. I had to go into our Texas division and lay off the whole Texas regional staff and take their place. So it was the
Wow.
regional manager, the HR person, the finance person, and
Wow.
I think I didn't know I was gonna get a bonus for doing that. And I was probably, it was not something I volunteered for. It was kind of an assignment. But I must have done a good job really showing how much I didn't like doing it because they were all apologizing to me that I had to do it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
it turned out fine, but it was not a fun job making that change.
You were the hatchet
And then
man.
having to do the work of
Yeah.
4 people, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
You know,
good.
depending what you think a bonus is, and Bill
Hmm.
Jorgensen will know about this. But at one time, I fired the boss that I had. And it was our income. My wife was all worried and excited and stuff because I had no other job to go to, but I'd had enough. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And the bonus was opportunities opened up like I'd have never thought available
Yep.
before.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know really consider it a bonus really, but one time when I was working on my job, I did get hurt because it was in the day, a glue machine, I was cleaning up the cart tip over, I had to go get stitches. And when I got my next paycheck, they gave me overtime pay when I was in the doctor's office.
Oh, nice. Good boss. Well, go ahead.
I'm okay. I'm good.
All right. Well, real quick one for me. Back when I got there was a new CEO. I love my old one, didn't like my new one that much. And but we needed somebody to go to Washington, DC to testify in a committee hearing. And it just happened to be that you needed to go on the weekend to get there for the committee hearing early on Monday morning. And I had a bunch of family coming from Nebraska out to Indiana. And so I couldn't be me. Well, he's going around one by one by one, and nobody could go. Everybody they had something going on. So, and I am and have been and always have been a big NASCAR fan. And he just so happened that his wife's, it'd be his brother-in-law, was high up on the executive with NASCAR. So he said, look, this is what we'll do. If you will go and testify, I'll see to it that you pick what NASCAR you would like to go to. I'll get you the tickets. You'll stand in the winner's circle after it's over.
Oh, wow.
And you'll get to meet drivers and everything. So I said, fine. And I picked my race. And so I went and I went home and got beat up really bad by my wife because the family was coming and I was leaving. And so, but I told her, and by the way, it was for two. So she got to go. She was going
She got to go, huh, Gary?
She was going to get to go too. So anyway, I did it. I went out to DC and did the testifying, and I got home, and so then I had picked the race. The reason I tell you this bonus never happened. I never ended up going to a race. Never ever was. And I picked the one I told him I wanted to go to, and all of that. So it even gets a little bit worse. So we're out to dinner one night with the whole team, the directors of the company, and we're sitting there, and his wife's sitting there, and I brought it up, and he looked at me and gave me a dirty look, like, "Don't bring that up," because it's her brother. And I said, "Yeah," and she said, she looked at him and said, "Kevin, you mean to tell me you told Gary this, and now you haven't done anything about it?" "Yeah." Well, so she says, "Well, I'll take care of it." And I said, "Oh, well, thank you." So within the next 3 weeks, they got a divorce.
Well, you might
Right.
see she took care of it.
Yeah, and I still didn't get a go.
Yeah.
Gary.
You're brutal.
Oh, man.
So, I volunteered. All
Wow.
right. Do you prefer to live in a rural area, suburban area, or city life to raise a family?
Rural,
Sure.
Rural, okay.
yeah. They can all be Tom Sawyers and Huckleberry Finns that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rest of you? What's your pick?
Well, I think if I had to do it over again, I'd say probably rural rather than Yeah, I think I would. I think I would.
How do you define Elkhorn as?
Suburban.
Suburban, yeah,
Suburban.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that'd definitely be me. Same thing when I moved from Pennsylvania. Same way. That's how Elkhorn was when I moved from Pennsylvania. So
Yeah,
I'd
I
definitely
raised
say
my family in a
suburban.
city, but I like rural probably be the best.
The only thing here, and I guess I'd ask you Omahaites, is that it's hard to define city, suburban, and rural because they're coming together amazingly.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's fast.
Yeah, that's a
Sure.
good point because when I moved to La Vista when I came in there. And La Vista was a small town. It's a suburb. But really, I mean, when I drive to work, I saw pheasants flying by. I was driving country
Yeah.
roads to get to work.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it was kind of in between rural suburban
Yeah.
growing up. And then we moved to Papillion, which was kind of its own small town.
Yeah.
Really away from everything. So even though it's probably technically a suburb, I would consider it more rural than a suburb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
Gary-
that's a great point. The point is that in our area of America, being the Midwest and the Plains, suburbans aren't suburbans until the city catches up and surrounds them.
Yeah.
But prior to that,
Yeah.
they're their own little country town. They have their own churches.
Yep.
They have
Yep.
their
Yep.
own community. So like you, Raul, when we moved to Ralston, and our kids went to Ralston High, and it was like a small little community then.
Yeah.
So that I understand those comments. So suburban to me is when there's a big plot of ground and there's nothing there, and they build new houses, and it's kind of like actually what's happening in Bennington right now too, and you saw this, you live out that way, is they don't have a lot of industry out there, so those homes are so taxed.
Okay.
But they're suburban. They're definitely suburban compared to these others.
Are you seeing this around here? It's like an epidemic. They're building these square units. You can call them up senior living. You can call them apartments. You can call them condos, but they can't build them fast enough.
I know.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you got the baby, I'm one of them. You got the baby boomers, and we've all lived in our large homes, but now we don't want to anymore, and we want to downsize, and but yet the wives, they don't mind downsizing, but they want all the finer things that would exist in a small house.
Yeah.
So you got to have you have this littler house, but you got to have a big walk-in closet that takes care of their clothes.
Yeah.
And you got to have the microwave and the center island and the
That's
cooktop,
right.
the cooktop, and you can tell I'm speaking from experience here.
Yes. Well, and then you got to pony up about 150,000. After you sell the first house, and then you got to dip into the pocket for more.
Well, you live in a wonderful time because you sell a much larger house, and then you move to a smaller house, and you pay more for it than what you sold your old house.
That's right.
Plus more tax.
And that's right in the rule book.
Yeah. Well, again, when I thought about this when I had that last one where they casting lots. It's like drawing, who gets the short straw. Well, they were casting lots. We're going to talk about this a little bit, but they weren't going to let, everybody was living outside of Jerusalem. They just didn't open up the doors and say, hey, we got these great lots here, come build your houses. They basically said, we're going to be careful about who we're going to let in to Jerusalem. So they casted lots, and 1 in every 10 people would get to go into Jerusalem to live. Now, I'm still not quite sure how that really would work, because some people, 1 in every 10, somebody's probably going to feel like they got the short straw because they don't want to leave their family. They don't want to live in Jerusalem, but yet they drew the straw, so they're going to go. And there was lineages, family lineages, that only certain people could actually get to move into Jerusalem. So it was very special to get to do that. So
Yeah.
Now the leaders of the people settled in Jerusalem. The rest of the people cast lots to bring one out of every 10 of them to live in Jerusalem, the holy city. This is one of the first times in the Bible. I think in the Bible, Jerusalem is called the holy city, I think like 10 times. But this is one of the first times now that Jerusalem actually is called the holy city, while the remaining 9 would stay in their own towns. So the people commended all who volunteered to live in the Jerusalem. Now, again, I go back to all the commentaries I'm reading. I'm not really sure this was what I'd call volunteering. I mean, they drew
Yeah.
lots. Now, some people that really wanted to go, they would feel like they won the lottery. But those people who didn't want to go, they'd be looking at their straw going, wow, okay, bye, mom and dad, bye, grandpa and grandma, bye, my kids. I'm
Yeah.
going to live in Jerusalem. So,
Yeah,
in some
weird.
cases, yeah. So Lutherans don't do that. You all go and you get a keg of beer and go.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You pack up the car and go. Why do you think the people were reluctant to settle in Jerusalem? What do you think is the reasons why they might be reluctant to go? No right or wrong answer, so you can just whatever you think.
Maybe they had reduced freedoms on living there. On
Oh,
uh,
yeah. Yeah,
I
that's a
don't
good
know.
answer.
Could
Yeah,
it, I certainly don't know, but could it be a weather thing? Maybe too hot, I don't know. I'm not familiar with what the weather would be, but
yeah,
Wondering
well,
if it's
they talked about not open if you remember, one of the chapters said they didn't open the gates until the sun was well up and or almost
yeah.
down
Mhm.
because it got so hot.
Well,
I
It's-
was thinking the
it's-
history of what's happened in Jerusalem.
Yeah, I was saying because of corrupt, that's what I was thinking, corrupt government in there.
What's going to happen to them in there when it's been, conquered over the years.
Yeah, well, and see, that's another good answer. I haven't think of that either, but a lot of what we've talked about is everybody's always worried about what the rulers or because they weren't, even at this time, the Jewish people, the Israelites, which they like to be called not Jewish people, but the Israelites still were being ruled by Cyrus the king, and they still were being ruled by Persians, and they still were paying taxes, even though they lived in Jerusalem inside there. They paid taxes to the Persians and Cyrus the king. So with that being said, you probably were the people like Mike saying, well,
Yeah.
what's this mean? What's going to happen to me?
Yeah.
So you'd be a little bit concerned about what your decision would be if you were not going to be living on the outside, but am I going to be, they're going to see me as one of these people in Jerusalem that we don't like or something. Why do you think Nehemiah felt he needed to repopulate Jerusalem? Why did, Nehemiah's the governor and he's in charge of a lot of this. So he's saying, okay, we got all this done now, but you know what? We need more people in here. Why did he think that?
To create the new place for the Israelites.
well,
We
I
want-
probably
really trying to
needed,
bring them all back home.
Yeah.
they probably had jobs that they needed to fill just like we do as a
Yeah.
country.
Sure.
Yeah. Very good
I
point, Bill.
think I said any more taxes.
Yeah.
Very good. There's 2 points.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, your taxes you paid there didn't go back to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
They went straight out the door.
Yeah, right
That's
to
true.
Rome.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
You still clear tax, but they go to them. That's true.
Yeah. But a very good point about people. They needed people to come in and to do the jobs that were necessary. And if you read anything about Rome or Greece or Israel, they had unbelievable water systems in these places. They ran canals and dug wells, and the water would run through the city. And it's just amazing how advanced they were with the water systems in these places. And so water was really important.
I think they had a pretty good system of roads back then too.
Yeah. Well, that's what made, honestly, the Israelites in their area. And when you hear about Paul going from city to city, about the trade routes pretty much ran all the way through all that area. You had to go through there to get anywhere.
Mhm.
That was important. So
Well,
all good
that's,
reasons. Well, I found this. This is actually the best map I found, and this one's not bad. But if you go down to where it says the Valley Gate on the left side,
Yep.
well, when this
Hey,
pretty well known that like you get a real estate agent that goes and shows you the house.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
Ezra and Nehemiah said, we need to take these people and show them the place. So that is the outer skirts, that is the wall. And if you go from the Valley Gate to the north, walking around on top of the wall, I also thought about this too, crazy thoughts. I was thinking, I wonder if they had guardrails. I mean, they're walking around on the top of this wall with
Huh.
people. But Ezra went north and went up all the way around until they came down to where the water gate was. Nehemiah took his group, and I wouldn't want to be in his group because the first place they come upon is the Dun Gate, and that's the sewer system. So, and it looks like to me they had to go down on the ground and go back up and get on the wall again. But they came around and met Ezra. So they each took a group from each way and they walked around the wall itself. So you can see it's a pretty good diagram of this
Yeah.
the wall that was built. So it's got all the gates, and keep in mind those gates were very important to the protection of the city, and they would close them down at night and open them up during the day. Now you see where the temple was. They kind of scooted that sucker back in the corner there, and where the Temple Mount, and you see pictures, that it's from the Temple Mount itself. You could see forever when you stand up on that. Now, we will all, by the way, as I was looking through, you say, well, probably something I'm never going to see, but we will all, when the new Jerusalem comes, we're going to see it, because God will make sure that we all go to Jerusalem at one time in our life, back and forth. So we will go there, but so you'll get to see that someday. Any comments, questions, anything you're reading there that's interesting to you? You would all probably be, there's a little line down there that says the House of Heroes. That's probably where your house will be built. It's a new plot down there. You get a corner lot fairly cheap. So you can be in the House of Heroes.
So they it says priest house. They had priests.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, that before the people were encouraged to come in, they had the Levites, they had the priests, which was different levels, by the way. And then you had the political, and you had Nehemiah, who was a prophet, but all of those people currently are living in Jerusalem. But when they looked around, they had the priests, they had the Levites, they had the political leaders, but they didn't have any regular people like us living in. So now they wanted to bring some people in.
You asked if I noticed anything there. If I look at this and thinking that it's north and south, east and west.
Yeah.
If you look on the left side or there's only one gate there, the Valley Gate.
Yeah.
But you look at the north side, you got 1, 2, 3 up there. And then you look on the other side, holy mackerel, there's all kinds of gates. So are there mountains maybe on the on that one side? Okay.
Yeah, you do. You have the garden up on that one side, and so you do. It's very hilly. In fact, one of the commentaries said that when they are outside of that wall and they walk up that north side, it's so steep you can hardly walk up that area. That's probably why it's a sheep gate, because only the sheep can get up there. So.
There you go.
Actually, one of the gates that you've heard about more and off, that I think one of the major gates is the water gate. Now,
Mhm.
in time, once they get all these people in there, you'll start to see that all the commerce, which is the retail, is where all of those are, it's like going to the mall. Everything's right at the gate. So you walk in the door, you get hit with all the retail right there. You can buy your pigeons and sheep and, when you have Passover, if you don't have anything to sacrifice, you can buy it at the gate when you walk in.
Yeah.
So if somebody says in your group saying, well, I don't have a sheep or a pigeon or just something to sacrifice, they said, oh, don't worry about it. You can buy one at the gate. So,
Mhm.
these are the provincial leaders who settled in Jerusalem. Now some Israelites, priests, Levites, temple servants, descendants of Solomon's servants lived in the towns of Judah, each on their own property in the various towns, while other people from both Judah and Benjamin lived in Jerusalem. From the descendants of Benjamin, basically were the priests, the Levites, and the gatekeepers. Now, I didn't put it in here, and I didn't do it on purpose, but there's one group that was left out, and it was very important that they came. Everybody know which group that was? The singers,
Oh,
the people that sang. They wanted them to come to Jerusalem also. So they were a special group in itself, the singers. So in our church, Brad would be in.
Yeah. Oh, good.
All the city's walls had just been rebuilt in an astonishing 52 days. The majority of the people still elected to live outside the city. In the surrounding villages, near farms, extended families. Now, several chapters later, the book of Nehemiah returns to the problem of Jerusalem's meager population. So inside the wall, they're turning around saying, I could spit and never hit anybody. So they're worried about that. So their meager population. So the details of the solution developed to repopulate the city. The leaders of the people already inhabited the city, and now they draw lots to select 1/10 of the rest of the people to
Hmm.
move into the city proper. Now, I'm not sure, I tried to, but every you count, I don't know if they had people and they counted off by 10 and every 10th person, but 1 in 10 would go. So 1/10 of the population outside actually is what they're looking for, would end up in Jerusalem. The remainder of the chapter 11 lists the people who would live in Jerusalem, beginning with the laity and then continuing through the priests, the Levites, the gatekeepers, the singers. There's the singers. And the chapter ends with a note listing the villages in which some of the people of Judah and the people of Benjamin lived. Honestly, if you read it, it almost seems like some of the people are now very excited they didn't get picked and they were going to be living outside in their villages outside the walls of Jerusalem themselves. Why do you think that would be? Why would you be excited about not getting picked?
It's like you're living in a gated community. It's like
Yeah.
the structure that you have to live under. I think maybe within those walls, I don't know if people felt safer, I don't know. But people outside there of the wall, the Jerusalem, I just think they had more options on how they lived their lives. I don't know.
Well, back on the map, you saw that there was place for the priests, place for so I'm coming in, I'm one of the 10, I'm gonna live in my HUD house, HUD house next to the
Yeah.
priests.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, when I started thinking about how, we have built our cities and built when we came here, the Germans came here on my German side, the town of Ohio and Nebraska is almost all related. And that's still today, they're almost all still related. So you see how, even with looking back on this, that you're moving into a territory that I'm sure where they're coming from is it's all family. And now they're going into a territory that they're going to have priests and Levites and singers and living around them. So they were very segregated. So were they going to feel uncomfortable by living amongst all these people? Probably,
Probably.
Yeah.
Good
And,
point.
probably.
and I can imagine there was a whole lot of complaining about the immigrants like we're doing
Yeah.
now.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Did you see who
Oh,
moved
those-
in next to me? Man.
That doggone Levite. They
You
must
know,
have had Levite jokes.
I
back
no
then.
more moved in. The guy was over telling me what I needed to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Why do you think people were elected to live in Jerusalem? We've just already covered that. Would you have been willing to move to Jerusalem and leave your family to live in Jerusalem?
Only if it was a pay increase.
It
You know,
is.
maybe if you were real old and couldn't take care of yourself, maybe that's what you do.
Hmm.
Anybody else? Yeah.
We have a bodyguard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know, even still today, I'd rather move out in the sticks than go into the city squalor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've never been good about taking directions. And me moving in Jerusalem, I probably wouldn't have lasted. They'd probably been showing me the door. What gate can we get him out of?
Yeah.
The
So,
dung gate.
yeah. So, and the other thing you have to think about is that did they make any mistakes on those 1/10? And what did they do with those mistakes? That's not in the Bible, by the way.
Okay.
You know, we talked about this a little bit, I think, the other night, Gary. Casting lots. Well, we shake the dice and see who goes and who doesn't. And that
Yep.
goes back to the
Yeah.
beginning, how they did that.
Yeah.
I'm sure that I'm kind of curious if you're the one that had the good shake and you ended up with it. Yeah, could you, if you got it, could you sell it to somebody else? Who knows? You know,
Yeah.
lots of stuff probably went around that you know transpires today. I mean,
Yeah. Spoken like a true salesman, Bill.
that's right. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well-
well, I'll give you 600,000 for that lot.
Believe it or not, that the world and the earth and the cities and the places that there was a time when it was desirable to be segregated. Those were the times where you'd go to Chicago, and I remember it. I was young when I
Oh
went
my
there.
God, yes.
You'd go to Chicago, you'd go to New York, but you would literally seek out those places to go eat because you could go
Oh,
here
yeah.
and eat German, you could go here eat Chinese, you could go here and
Yep.
eat. So
Mhm.
the cities were segregated, but they were segregated in such a way that they loved it. I mean, they loved living amongst their own people.
Well,
So this next question is, would you be willing to leave where you live right now and move to the inner city and serve God? Now, don't all jump up.
well,
I
Yeah.
tell you, that makes
I
me
guess.
think of when I went down. There's the mission that's downtown when they were looking at doing some work with Mobia, and it was kind of interesting because he wanted to connect the homeless with the people from the church, and he says we got to get them out of the pews and into the city to really help these people. It was a calling for God, and it was just an amazing place where they were feeding and getting programs for people that were homeless. But it's it's a tough assignment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
Hmm.
Go ahead.
I was
Well-
just gonna say that I really had thought this out and you know, where I live is a first ring suburb, but our roads get faithfully plowed. Our city services are good. And that's just not the case to move to Minneapolis or St. Paul. Why in the heck anybody would do that is beyond me. I realize that you need the calling, to spread the word of God, but that whole package just doesn't seem to be tempting.
Yeah.
Well, so city service, the services are not as good.
That's for sure.
What else? What else about the inner city that would keep you from moving down there?
Absolutely, crime and then the way they're screwing around with the police department right now. It's just, I don't need that.
With saying all that, Bill, and I agree 100%. But it goes back to what Gary said. Would you go to the inner city to serve God? And you said it too at the beginning. Is your calling? And God doesn't call us to be comfortable.
No, no, you're right. But those are the reasons that would make me possibly ignore that core call.
Exactly. You and me both.
Yeah,
and it starts in your lives, for you to get, when you say about comfort, it is uncomfortable, but you begin to assimilate to it. And the reason I'm telling you that is that I'm sure that when we talk about people that first come to the Open Door Mission, first come to the jail, first come to the Omaha Street School, if they've never done that before with the people you're going to be serving for God, it's a little uncomfortable. One is the unknown. It's very uncomfortable to be in the unknown. So, but if once you're there and you find that it's much different than you thought it would be, and you become more comfortable with each day, and through love, caring, service, all that, you begin to enjoy it more than not enjoy it. So it's crossing that barrier. But I wanted to just want to make that point that, it's not the people at all. I mean, going to the inner city and serving in the inner city, it's not the people, it's the services and the crime that you do not want to put your family in the middle of to go there. Now, if I said to you, look, this area that you're going to go into has absolutely zero crime, hasn't had a crime in many years.
Yeah.
Your services are great. Your trash is picked up. Your streets are plowed, and it's a nice community. And then we need you to go down there and serve as a deacon to your church in that area. You'd probably consider it, but you're not going to put your family in it. So the beauty of what God has done for us, and it's both good and bad, by the way, is that we have the ability to take our cars, go down, spend the day, spend the night, work with these people, and then get the hell out of town.
Right. Yeah.
And
but the bonus to that too is you see miracles happening.
Oh yeah, and the other part of this is in life too, is I'm not so sure that if you approach God and love God and teach God and Jesus to the people you're talking about, they see you like we were talking about it last night. If you're a humble person and you stay humble with those people and love those people with you, like your brothers, like your sisters, then they in turn want to aspire to where you live. And you want to say, and you say, come join us. It's not like, no, don't go too far here. You need to stay right where you're at. Don't you're not going to live in my neighborhood. No, we don't do that. We say, come join us. We'd love to have you come.
Well,
So that's that. I think that is a difference.
I hope we're doing that.
Yeah, and I did. Well, Marv will attest to it. Last night I got in front of these guys and I said, I just want you to know that I come to you here tonight and I know that I'm better looking than you guys. I have better clothes than you have. I have a better car than you have. I've got a better house than you do. I'm just better than all of you. And everybody was, I had the most dumbfounded faces in that room looking at me. And then I said, I just showed you what somebody, when they're not humble, what they act
Yep.
like. And
Right.
that's not gonna be you, and that's not gonna be me. And,
Mhm.
cause, and so I think that's the part where we have to be humble no matter who we are. We've been
Yeah.
gifted by God with blessings. I thank God for that, but I tell you, we gotta be humble about that also, so. What is your church doing to serve these parts of the city? Is your church doing anything? Church is the people, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's the people.
Yeah.
Well, I think what they reach out for different, provide different services. If it's not for the people interacting, but monetarily, I think. It,
So they give money.
but some of it, yeah, and
Okay.
but there is also volunteerism, the time and time and money, yeah. But I think it's not always money.
So if you go to church on Saturdays at our church and make peanut butter sandwiches and put them in bags, and then you go home.
But you're part of the service. That's part of you're reaching out. I don't know if that's enough. Get a good, it gives you a good feeling.
I'm letting you speak here. You're stuttering a little bit, and I'm wondering.
Yeah, well, it'll be a guilt trip, you know.
You
Well,
see,
your gut tells you if it's enough.
you're taking my comment and thinking, okay, that doesn't seem quite right. I just made a sandwich and I go home.
It'll clear my guilt for the day.
And you know, and I didn't know it. I was amazed. Our church itself, and I know you all don't belong to our church, but they made somewhere in the vicinity of 84,000 meals last year. That's a lot of meals.
Amazing, yeah, it is.
Oh,
And it's amazing, even as wealthy as the Elkhorn community is, how many, because I was helping Ellen when she wasn't feeling well, deliver some of the food to the schools for lunch programs, because there's some kids that can't afford, some families that can't afford lunch, and it's increased quite a bit in Elkhorn. You wouldn't think that's happening in Elkhorn, but it happens everywhere.
Oh yeah,
Right.
oh yeah. It's so funny about how people think, because when you have the gala that they just recently had, and I helped with it a year ago, but one of the things that was brought out was that if we were going to talk about the kids in the Elkhorn area who needed to be helped with being fed, to do that lightly, stick more about what we're doing on the inner city itself with the Open Door Mission, the jail, and all that stuff, because people are more likely to donate money if they're hearing about what we're doing with the inner city than what we're doing with the Elkhorn kids.
Well, and I think it's the international, it's the local, but I think there's a combination of we're helping the community, we're helping not only our community, but other communities, and then other communities around the world. So I think that's a good comprehensive mission.
And I really hear this loud and clear. I really do, because my daughter has taught since the beginning when she graduated from college, has always taught at Westside schools. And I always give her a little bit of trouble about being at Westside. But I get it, believe me, between the eyes with her, is that they've got as many kids that have issues with food and family and dysfunction as you get anywhere else. And she said, they're in my classroom, Dad. And I always kind of smile, because then I've got her where I wanted her. And she and then we move on. But she's always said that it doesn't matter if you're in Elkhorn, Bennington, Ralston, La Vista, Bellevue, West Side, you're gonna have that, we have a tendency, by the way, and I was gonna bring this up earlier, is that segregation in the world has always been there. It's
Yeah.
not that we didn't invent it. It's
Right.
always been there, and we've promoted it. We've actually, people assimilate to where they feel most comfortable. If I'm a criminal, I don't want to live in Elkhorn.
Mhm.
I want to live where the
Mhm.
criminals live. So if there's a gang that I want to belong to, I'm probably going to find it not in my neighborhood where I live right now. I'm going to have to move to get in a gang. So
Mhm.
back to Jerusalem. What could the influence be if your church would send 1/10 of its membership to the inner city? Now,
Oh,
that'd be a few people out of our church.
wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what are we at right now? We're all 3,000 something members?
Yeah, probably around,
Whoa, that's,
we
Yeah.
have close to 900 to 1,000 that regularly attend church.
Yeah.
On Sundays is probably the count.
So if you took just membership alone, you're talking about 300 people ascending down to the inner city. I can tell you, we're not even close to that.
No.
I can tell you that on Bible studies alone, like ours, the one on Friday that we have up at the church. I mean, literally, I look around that table and I started 10 years ago in that Bible study, and I don't see many new faces.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the same guys.
Mhm.
And the problem is that we need to do the 1/10 thing because we're all getting older. And
Yep.
one of these days, you're gonna look around that table and we're gonna be dropping off one by
Yep.
one by one. So again, how we need to draw
Good
lots
job.
and say, you're lucky you get to go to the Friday morning Bible study. You will be going. We will see you there.
But it's at 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course,
Right.
some people can't go because they work that time in the morning.
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you the honest story about that. If you recall, Marv and Dave, you know,
Is it?
we wanted the younger guys, Mike, you too. We
Yeah.
wanted the younger guys to go, and they said, "Well, you know, we can't come at that time because it's so close to work." So we moved it back so those
Mhm.
guys could come. Guess what happened? They still didn't come.
Yeah, you know it.
Yeah.
I know.
They have to get up too early.
Because
Yeah.
I started work at 6 in the morning.
Yeah. So, you know, you can make anything work.
Yep.
I mean, every city I've ever lived in and every place I've ever lived in, I got in a Bible study and I made it a thing that it was for me that I needed to be there. And so I was there. And, you know, and I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying that you need that in your brain to say, okay, I need this and I will go.
Well, and all Bible studies are not 6 in the morning either.
No.
I know they
No.
got some 9:30 in the morning and, you know,
Yeah.
Or in the afternoon, that late evening.
afternoon, yeah.
Yeah. Quite honestly, I think if you said to any, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you would say to any pastor or church, say, look, I'm looking for a Bible study at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And the pastor would say, well, let's put that out and see if we can get a group at 4.
Yeah.
And I bet you would. I bet you would. You would get, may take a little while, but you would get a group at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's the avoidance of organization and segregating that group out and getting somebody to lead a group to do it and that kind of thing. But
Exactly.
you could do it. You could get it. So,
And then
well,
Saturday, they have on Saturday, like most people don't work on Saturdays,
yeah.
but they still.
Well, we're going to move on next week. I'm going to try to finish up. We have chapters 12 and 13 left, and I'm going to try to finish that next week because we're getting, you know, to the housing and all the things we're doing, and we'll move on. But as you can see, Nehemiah, the first 1 through 10 was more about property, temple, and wall, and now we're getting into people and the creation of the church and the Israelites and the separation. And the segregation is what we're into. We're seeing more and more of it. So We always want to know that what Nehemiah began to show here at the back end of Nehemiah is that more important than the wall, more important than the bricks and mortar of a temple, was the people. And now they're focusing on those people. So
Yeah.
prayers, anybody? And any thoughts?
Yeah. That one thing here, I was like prayer concerns for a friend of mine, Tom, who's he's dealing with a bout of cancer and has some things going on this week. And I just pray for Tom that this procedure goes well for him and he can see a better future. That so we'll see the outcome, but I just pray for him, and that's pretty much on my part.
Yeah,
Good.
I got my physical this week on Friday. Yeah, so I'm gonna go get my blood work done today, I think, so I have to fast the whole day.
Wow,
Okay,
good.
that's always fun. Yep. Good luck to you.
Well, you know, the good thing about fasting is you get to eat after you fast.
Yeah. And it
That's
tastes so
right.
good.
That's right.
You have something to look forward to. Some people are fasting and they don't really want to fast because they don't have any food coming. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Anybody
Any
else?
others? Prayer thanks for Debbie's surgeries and that she's had in the last 2 weeks. And she's still, it's going to take a while. And Raul and I were talking about our wives last night. Yeah, we've just got to have patience, and because we are the caretakers, and I was kind of a worn out caretaker last night, and I felt a lot better after I talked to you guys. So I got up with a new attitude this morning. So
That was that muffin, Gary.
yes, the muffin did it. I expect those every week. I'm going to need it.
Yeah, I think I can
Okay.
pray for my nephew's daughter too. I prayed last week that she missed school for a while and she has epilepsy now and she has seizures, so they get worse and she didn't even die from it. She's only 10 years old and I
Yeah.
can pray for my mom. I had to mention, she can't even talk to her anymore because she disconnects on the phone. So, and my brother always gets the phone either. I only got the phone turned off or what. So,
Okay.
I should bring this up, Dave, you reminded me, some of us know Lee Fry. And Lee Fry had a liver transplant because of alcoholism a number of years ago.
Mhm.
And that liver is failing for obvious reasons, I guess. And so he and his wife are in a care facility right now. She's got dementia to the point that her vocabulary is about 4 words. And Lee's daughter are telling us that he won't make it until Easter. So, pray for that family for peace and understanding.
Okay.
yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I think my mom needs to be a nurse. In fact, I think my mom's worse than my father-in-law was.
It's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's very difficult. So,
Mm-hmm.
is that
Yeah.
it? All right, Mike.
Okay, sure, guys. Pray. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, we again thank you for bringing us men of faith here together this morning and to studying your word of Nehemiah. Again, we learned so much, and just about with Nehemiah, it's just the walls of Jerusalem. It's like as we think of a gated community and the different people that live there under a structure and act, and it brings us to think and go up on how our communities are. They're a lot alike, and it's just many years ago. But there's so many similar things that are brought up when we learn of Nehemiah and what they're going through in this time. And Lord, again, we're just so grateful to be able to study your word and discuss things and to break things down. Lord, we're so grateful. We have many prayer requests that have been spoken here, and we just lift them all up to you and just ask for your healing time and just to know that we have so many concerns of our loved ones, and we just things that maybe have not even been mentioned. We just we just need to trust in you and to know that you'll help all of us and relieve our hearts of some of the things of our concerns. And Lord, we just also be with our congregation and our country, and just especially with all our leaders in this country, to help them make good decisions for the good of the order. So many things are going on. It's so complex. And we just hope that they make the right decisions for all of us. Live in peace. And I know the parts of the Ukraine and all the other parts of the world that are struggling, we just need to keep I guess, their passion to continue on and keep moving forward. Again, Lord, we ask you to keep us all safe as we continue throughout this week, and to bring us all back again. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Very good. All
Hey,
right,
thanks, guys.
Have a good
Hey,
week.
have a good week.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bye.
You
Bye-bye.
too.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.